You ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You guys good. Hey, hello everyone. My name is Ban Tien. Last name spelled Tien. Assistant Chief for the Houston Police Department. With me, I have Lieutenant Croson with the Command Center. What we have today is it started as a family disturbance with a weapon and resulted in an officer-involved shooting. It is extremely fortunate that no one is dead today, and this I'm going to go into details. As such, at approximately 1:15 p.m. today, our officer responded to a family disturbance in which a suspect threatened a family member to kill them. So our officer responded to the call, began taking the initial information and gathering the evidence and to investigate the scene. And the officer was on scene for approximately 45 minutes or so and began looking around the areas for the suspect, right? As you can imagine how dangerous it is. You have a suspect threatening to kill a family member. And as they were looking, they found the suspect in the proximity of the 10200 block of Valencia. Just a good reference, Valencia is probably like half a block north of I-10 at intersection of Mercury. So the initial call officer responded to was 10200 at Valencia. When the officer spotted the vehicle of the suspect, the vehicle is going back towards the house. Now you can imagine now, the officer got dispatched to a call involving the suspect threatened to kill a family member, and now the suspect is going back to the house, right? And the suspect began following the vehicle and initiate a traffic stop, trying to stop the suspect. At the same time, the suspect reached out the window and brandishing a firearm, flashing at the officer. Now you can imagine going back to the house, now showing the firearm, and has threatened to kill a family member, right? So the officer began following the vehicle, initiate a vehicle pursuit that lasted approximately 2 minutes. The suspect actually went back towards the house of a family member. And the suspect immediately jumped out of the vehicle and began to discharge his firearm at the officer. Subsequently, 3 officers returned fire, and the officer returned fire. The officer was not struck, but the suspect was struck. When the scene became safe, the officer approached the suspect, took the suspect into custody, and then immediately rendered aid. The suspect is currently in the hospital right now in surgery in stable condition. Suspect is a Hispanic male in his mid-20s. Now, I will say this, it is extremely fortunate that the scene ended up the way it ended up. The officer was on scene, responded to a scene, and the officer, before leaving the scene, actually spotted the suspect, was able to intervene the suspect from getting to the house and stop the threat right there. Now, also because of the timely first aid provided by officer, it appears that the suspect will survive from his injury. Now, I do want to make a disclaimer. The investigation is extremely preliminary at this point. As you know, as more information come in, things can change. We currently have our homicide investigator from the Special Investigation Unit is on scene investigating, just like any officer-involved shooting. We also have our crime scene unit with the forensic science team is also here processing the scene. At the same time, our investigators from Internal Affairs Division is also running a parallel administrative investigation into this. And our DA's office, the investigator from the DA office, the Civil Rights Unit will also run a parallel investigation. I do want to make this clear that this is a preliminary investigation. As the scene continues to develop, we'll continue to disseminate more information, right? Currently, we have 3 officers involved, and 1 officer is in his mid-30s, has 1 year of service. The second officer is in his late 20s, also has 1 year of service, right? The last officer, the third officer, approximately in his early 40s, has about 16 years of service with the Houston Police Department. And as any protocol, those officers will be placed on administrative duties pending this investigation. Any question at this time?
So this suspect, he was at the house and then left, and that's
Yes, ma'am.
when you
So the suspect was at the house, threatened a family member with a firearm, which he also believed to have a firearm. So while the officer was investigating the scene, conducting the investigation, before they leave the scene, they try to kind of canvass the area. They actually spotted the suspect going back to the house. That's what led them to try to intercept the suspect before him getting back into the house. And he actually made it back pretty close to his house, jumped out of the vehicle, began shooting the suspect. Moments later, our PIO is going to publish a few photos of the shot, actually shot and caused damage to our patrol car, a big shot, right? And also multiple firearms is also recovered at the scene.
What kind of weapon did he
One,
display?
one is a long gun. I didn't get to look close enough. We have pictures of a pretty long, rifle, and the other one was a pistol.
Now, how many times was the suspect hit, or how many shots were fired in this?
As you know, as complex as it is, it's preliminary right now. All I know is the suspect fired multiple rounds. It is believed with his rifle and his pistol, and also subsequently returned fire. But the suspect, struck, I believe, at least once, but also was able to render first aid. Sanctity of life is extremely important to us, so they were able to quickly render first aid. Therefore, he was able to be successfully transferred into the hospital, and then he's in surgery right now, believed to be in a stable condition.
Now, do you know, if there are any prior calls to police before this, or any response calls for service here at this residence?
So based on the preliminary investigation we have, there are multiple calls, that also came to this residence multiple times involving the same suspect, involving the same threats towards a family member, right? And it is also believed that the suspect may have some mental issues too, right? And I want to take this moment to segue into, as we get close to the holidays, and sometime in the last couple of years ago, there are a lot of stuff going on with COVID, with the confinement, due to the pandemic. And a lot of us, have a lot of challenges, right? So those family members that recognize those challenges, please call us, ahead of time. Let us know. Give us the time to respond so we get the subject matter expert, right? The clinician, to those folks that recognize those symptoms to provide those help. At least at the minimum, try to take their loved ones to the hospital so they get some sort of treatment, right? Prevention is key. We cannot stop everything at any given moment, but prevention is key. But it's so fortunate today that it ended up the way it ended up. The officer took the time to investigate the scene, and prior to leaving the scene, actually do the due diligence to circle around and find a suspect actually going home to stop and interfere and intervene to a potential, right, escalation of a bad scene, right? Most importantly is the officer were able to contain the threat where they need to, and then provide first aid, to save the suspect's life.
How was the suspect's family doing, the one that was being threatened?
I can imagine they're pretty shaken up right now as I walk up to talk to a couple of them. Then again, it is part of the crime scene, and our investigator is conducting the preliminary investigation. It's limited what I can do right now, right? It's gonna, I would imagine, you get threatened, and then, you got the suspect coming home, with actual, firearms with him, and start shooting at the police, so.
How thankful are you? I mean, I know this is, not what you guys want to be on, but nobody's dead from this,
So, hey, you know what, as mentioned earlier, the sanctity of life is always the most important thing to us. Not one of the most important things, but the most important thing. But the fact that, no one resulted in a death today is always a good day, right? As you know, we've been going through a lot of challenges, right? Any loss of life is always a tragedy, right? Our key is to prevent that from happening.
Are you guys using surveillance footage to?
So that's part of the investigation, gather body cam footage, and I'm confident that, the neighborhood, there's a lot of cameras up there. Our investigators going to canvass the neighborhood to get an additional footage to be part of the investigative package. So I encourage everyone that has the additional photos, cell phone videos that some of y'all may have, or some home video that you guys have, just call us, the Homicide Division, at 301-713-308-3600, and let them know you have those surveillance so we can capture those and put it in a package for our investigative package.
Do you know how far or how long the chase was between when the police officer tried to initiate the traffic stop to where it ended?
Well, that's going to be part of the investigation. What I gather right now, the chase actually lasts a couple of minutes because the suspect's actually heading back to his family member's house. And he actually made it to the front door of his family member's house.
So he left.
He left, but just in the vicinity, and
The officer was like, there he is, and tried to stop
yes,
him.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What happened as he was trying to
Absolutely.
There was a mental health program that was implemented in HPD.
I'm sorry?
There was a mental health program that was implemented in HPD's system. Do you know if anybody was called out from that mental health program?
This is going to be part of the investigation. To answer your question, the Houston Police Department do have a robust and progressive mental health program, right, called a crisis intervention program. Often our officers do respond to those. Most of our officers are trained in crisis intervention, right, and then they do have the experience to address those issues accordingly. Any questions? Hey, thank you for your time. I just wanted to ask as we get close to the holidays, as you know, in the next couple of weeks or so, most of us will get to enjoy a little bit of holiday. These guys still out there, men and women out there, day on and day off, 24/7 a day, still respond to calls, and just keep them in your prayers and keep them safe. All right, thank you.
Just give me a few guys. I'll try to get those pictures posted on Facebook.